Hello. I have a couple of questions from Jade, um, and there's a little bit to them, so I'll just read through them. Since reading your book and becoming more aware of sociology as a field of study, the question I have formed is, do you think sociology is a field where research could be used to make changes to the lives of teenagers who are experiencing disadvantages within their families and home environments? How can we help young people to pursue an education when it feels pointless because of what we are experiencing? Okay, there's two pretty big questions there. Jade has sent another one through as well, and I'll get to that shortly. I'll address these two first. Firstly, the idea of sociology as being a field of research. I'm a sociologist. I studied sociology. I found that for me, sociology was probably the single most important part of becoming who I am today. Because what C. Wright Mills wrote a book on sociology, defining the concept of sociology, what is sociology. And what sociology did for me, it helped me to understand, firstly, my place in a community, in a family, in society. It also, through that process of understanding my place in society, I could begin to develop an understanding of myself. There's another concept called the sociological imagination. The sociological imagination talks about how I fit into society, changing the way that I view myself and how I fit into society. When I'm using the sociological imagination, I'm thinking about culture, about institutions, as in the economy, as in the culture of a community. Is it a disadvantaged community? Is it a well-to-do community? Am I transiting between different types of communities? Understanding all that. And for myself, the historical understanding of how I got to be where I am today. There's also understanding the things that happened around me. So sociology taught me to not only know who my mother and my father are, but to understand the experiences that helped construct who they were and why they were like they were. For example, when I started thinking about my mother, I had to think about the era in which she lived in, the history. Okay, so she had her first child in 1955. So if I start to think about what the town that she lived in, Tamworth, was like in 1955, the attitudes of the people, the expectations of the community, what she had to endure being a young mum in that community. What assistance was there for her from the government, especially given that she was in a domestic violence situation. So how did she cope? What tools, what mechanisms were available to her? Okay, fast forward a little bit. What facilities are available to a young mum today in that situation? It's a very different situation today. So that's understanding the historical context of what happened, and the institutional as being what government assistance was there. Okay, so I think sociology helps us to understand that broader context and what's happening around that. Personally, I think that a person who has a good understanding of sociology is very well equipped to work with young people in the education system. I think that somebody using sociology has a very, very good tool to work with disadvantaged, especially young people. Because when we're working with young people, it's important as well to understand the context of their situation. It's not only the symptoms that they're showing, their behaviour. It's how did it get there? And sometimes that's understanding a deeper intergenerational context of how a person got to where they were. So in that broader context, sociology is very important. It's still really important to me today. Now, I don't have to think about it so much today because I've developed all those little habits and disciplines and routines that I can apply into my daily life to help me transition from where I was to where I will be. I'm still a long way to go to where I will be. So, the next part of that question is how can we help young people to pursue an education when it feels pointless because of what they are experiencing? Yeah, that's a really challenging situation. I think an education is a tool. I see an education as a tool. If it comes down to the way I talk about it with young people is, okay, so you want to live in a community, in a society. How are you going to get your food? How are you going to get your money? Are you going to steal it? Yeah? Or do you want to take pride in who you are and have some self-value? And again, I'll relate it back to me. When I started that transition from homeless person, forest hermit, into a community life, they put me on a disability support pension. But I just didn't want to receive those things for nothing. I needed to be self-supporting. I needed to look after myself. So the way I looked at it is I need to go and get some tools so that I can provide my own meals, pay my own bills, build my own way in society. Sometimes when I'm talking to young boys about it, I talk about it in terms of learning to hunt. Yeah? So what tools are you going to use to go out and do your hunting? Because in early human societies we still had to hunt. we had to use our tools or our spears or whatever to go and learn to find food. I had to learn to find food in the forest. And I talk about society as being a new jungle. I had to learn how to get my food in the new jungle, and an education for me was the best way to do it. Let's not get too complicated about what an education actually is. I don't think that everybody needs to have a Year 12 education. You know? Learning is a lifelong skill. And I think the important thing is, the most important thing that we can learn in life is to learn how to learn. And that is what an education is for me. Learning how to learn, learning how to read, learning how to write, learning how to have appropriate conversations, learning about who we are. So if we continue to learn, eventually we'll be okay. So there's another question from Jade. Again, it's about how does someone reflect on themselves and their life and find where their focus best aligns? How does someone reflect on that? I think one goes with the other. I think getting to know oneself through that process of reflecting on oneself, I think, I'll reflect it back to me. I talk about having to get very honest with myself. And a part of getting honest with myself in that, reflecting back on my life was about understanding where my deficiencies were, and understanding where my deficiency were. As I start to work on each of those and I build those up, I start to build a direction for myself. Okay, because as I begin to feel over time, over a long period of time sometimes, as I begin to feel more comfortable with myself, because I'm getting up at the same time each morning, I'm cleaning my teeth, I'm getting dressed, I'm starting to make the effort to be a little bit more comfortable with myself. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking, how can I make, what do I need to do in my day? So, I might decide that I want to go and do some volunteer work, or so I'll go and I'll talk to, I did volunteer work with the RSPCA is the way I did that, but doing that helped me to find more direction in my life. But it's making, I think, finding direction in life is making contributions to community as well. So, and thinking and sharing our experience. So, in talking about our experience, we can get some reflection back on who we are, the directions we're going, what we've done and what we're not happy with. So, there's a lot to it. They were very big questions, Jade. Hopefully I've covered a little bit of that. If you've enjoyed the content, please like the YouTube, subscribe, and share. Share the YouTubes. Share the word. we can get some more questions coming in. Thanks for that.